Hello, 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 everyone. This is Helen Higginbotham coming at you on another Sunday with When Black Women Gather. I am the founder of this organization. We meet here on Sundays and talk about various topics that are pertinent to the Black community. Most times it's just women, but lately it's been our Black men. We've invited them as well because there's so much happening that is affecting all of us. And every opportunity that we get to come together and be in the same space and share information, I think we need to do that. Today, I am happy to share this space with my very good friend, Dr. Donna-Marie Winn. Hi, Donna.
Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. It's so good to
So
be here.
it's so wonderful to have you here. You guys are going to love this session. We're calling it Giving Care. Oh, wait a minute. What did we call it? I forgot that fast, Don. Giving Care and
I'm giving care to receiving, I think.
Giving Care to Needing Care. And what are your plans? I couldn't see the top of it. I was supposed to be to read it off of there and I can't. Okay, sorry about that. Giving Care to Needing Care and what are your plans for you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, although we always think that we're talking on this topic, we're usually talking about things about, as we get closer to our end, but and what we want, and what are our wishes for our end of life. This is more about what are your wishes about what do you want? How do you want to be taken care of? And how many of us have taken care of people? And we're not using the word caregiver, and Donna's going to tell us why she doesn't prefer that word. And so I'll try not to use it. But, there's a lot involved in it. It's a lot involved in it, and a lot that we take for granted. It's another of those conversations that we probably aren't even thinking about until we're actually in it. So, what Donna says is that we need to be proactive. So Donna, I'm going to step aside and take it and leave it up to you. And Donna will do a presentation. And if there's just something there, that you really need to say, go ahead and drop it. You can say something. Otherwise, just drop it in the chat and we'll circle back to you. So Donna, I won't be on screen with you, but I'm right here.
Okay. Well, great. How does that look?
Perfect. I'm
Okay,
going to.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I said recently, it is an honor to be here. I've been a longtime fan of When Black Women Gather. And so I've been looking forward to this topic. I think Helen alluded to the fact that we have on occasion talked about this. And when the opportunity presented itself for us to go a little deeper, I got really excited. So as Helen talked about it, this is really about giving and needing care. It's really a two-way street. I know a lot of the conversations that are being had are really about asking people to think about just their own wishes. But we're going to dive a little deeper into this and talk about what it means to be a part of the village. So, we're going to start off with a couple of poll questions and
Okay.
give Helen a second to load those. There's three questions, I think. So if you toggle to all those three, we'll get your responses.
Okay, here we go. These are very quick questions. They're anonymous, so feel free to leave um, whatever your answer in this. I think you couldn't hear me. I have some on mute. I was thanking you all for being responsive. Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Okay. And thank you, Helen, for creating those poll questions. I think that'll be
Mhm.
a great place for us to sort of dig into this conversation.
Yeah, I think so. Basis. So we've got 80% participation. Anybody else? I'll give you another 30 seconds if you want to respond. Otherwise, I think 80% is pretty good.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Anybody else? And I won't end the poll just in case people come on later and want to answer it. We'll go with what we have at this point. All right, looks
Any
like no
guesses,
new tape.
Helen, to how many people have given care? Oh, you're looking at the answers.
Who, me? No,
Yeah.
no. Oh, I am. You can't see the answers yet? No.
Oh, okay. Mm-mm.
Okay. Oh, I should have made you co-host, then you would be able
No
to see
worries.
them.
No worries.
All right, I'm going to end the poll and then you can see the answers, okay?
Perfect.
Here you
Mhm.
go. Share the results.
Okay. So it looks like three-quarters of the people with us today have actually been the primary care provider for an adult loved one. That is quite typical, especially in groups of people who are over like 50 and above, 40 and above. It's very common, especially among Black people, to have been a primary care provider. When it comes to question number two, have you designated a potential person to provide care for you? This is a little bit trickier. Oftentimes, people don't think about this, as you said, until the situation arises. But it looks like about 50-50, with 47% saying yes, they've designated somebody, and about 53% are saying no. I am very curious to find out um, from people just how many of the people who have been designated are children or spouses. So feel free to come off mute and just, if you're so inclined, share with us who you've designated the relationship to you. That would be great.
Anybody want to share, whether it's your husband, your child, grandchild,
Hmm.
or drop it in the chats if you're not
Oh, drop
interested
it.
in wanting
Mhm.
to.
For us, this was a particularly sticky question. I'll share some more about my life, but we are officially nulliparous. What does that mean? It's a funny, crazy word for we chose not to have children. So both me and my husband do not have kids. And interestingly enough, my only full sibling has no kids. All my half siblings don't have kids. And my husband has a half sibling as well, and she does not have kids. So there's a lot of adult sharing and stuff, but not a lot of kids in our close immediate family who are biologically ours. Now, if you expand the tent and think about all those who we've cared for, then it's actually a much larger village for us. And we have named a couple of people who are somewhat younger than we are. So, this third poll question is: do you feel prepared to have a conversation with others about your own future care? And about 20% of the people said they're very prepared. About half say they are somewhat prepared, and then a quarter say they're not prepared. Gotcha. Close. Reactions to any of the results that we've had so far? Helen, what you thinking? Were you surprised that um, a whole quarter of the people have already felt really prepared to have this conversation? Sound?
I'm surprised. And I'm also surprised at the large number, I guess, a large number of people who have already been care providers.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
uh, that surprised me. Did anybody else have any? Let's see what's in the chat. Does anybody else have any reactions to the poll? So somebody said they took care of their mother and their daughter.
Mhm.
Somebody else said they took care of their sister and their nephew. I think
Gotcha.
we think very often about it being, your spouse or your parents,
Mhm.
but sometimes I would imagine it's even friends that we find ourselves taking care of. Yes.
Absolutely.
I I took care of my name is Moon. I took
Hi.
care of both my parents at the same time. They both lived to be 90, 93, and both passed 6 months apart. And then I took care of my eldest sister, and then the children, six of them,
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
um, my nieces and nephews through school, college, and and then other disasters. Everything not so pleasant. But I'm at the age I am definitely ready to talk about it, but I don't have um, anyone in mind now. I mean, it has shifted. It has shifted based on the situation that the people that I had originally thought that I might um, help me help myself through the latter parts of through the last quarter of my life. I'm 78, I'll be 79. So, you know, I'm not planning to go anywhere today, but who knows? Tomorrow's not promised.
Mhm.
But I've been thinking about closer friends, people that I have helped. It's a quandary actually, because I really don't know how I will give up my own independence. That's part of it. I don't want to be where I've been invited to come, not because it's not negative, not because it's negative, but it's just out of my comfort area. Things that I know already, and I don't, particularly want to try to learn another environment. So. But anyway, those are the things that I know and I've done and I am concerned with.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. It is layered, like you've shared, and you've hit on some very key points. Like even when we think about a plan, our plan could shift based on other people's circumstances and our own, right? So a plan that we come up with or came up with maybe 15 years ago may be dramatically different because some of the people that we thought we would be in care relationships with have now moved halfway across the country, and we are not planning to move across the country to be with them. So yes, there is a dynamic piece to this. And what I often try to encourage people to do is to think about this not as etched in stone, but as a process where you get to sort of dream about what it is you would like and then get into conversation with people and see where their heads are at about it. Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Let me see, I'm looking in the chats. One person said she took care of her daughters, one very involved who resides with me, also a close friend, has verbal adopted daughter. And
Mm-hmm.
then another person was saying that she took care of her father who passed away in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh,
Okay.
okay. I am going to try to move us
Miss
along a little bit.
Jones, you had a question?
Yeah.
Oh, this is this still involved in my in taking care of someone or someone taking care of me or making decisions for me? Are we on that discussion yet?
So the questions had both two tones to them, right? So we can do either. Like, what were you thinking?
Oh, well, for I had discussed with friends, some of my colleagues, a couple of my colleagues years ago, if
Mhm.
I were to become ill, I would want them to make medical decisions for me
Mhm.
because, we were all physicians, and I think that if I, collapsed or something like that, they would understand more what's going on or what needed to be done or to make sure they stabilize me and make sure that it's something that they could treat rather than pull the plug on me, right away. So I just think my family, they're lay people and they don't understand the medical stuff, so I would prefer someone with more of a medical background to
Mhm.
help make those decisions for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you go by Patricia?
Yeah,
Okay.
Pat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pat, that is an excellent point, right? So even when we think about all the people who might be in a care relationship with us, there are some people who have different strengths, right? So
Mhm.
we have people who will um, blow it out of the water when it comes to providing nutritious food, our favorite dishes, the whole 9 yards. And they might not also be the person who's going to research the medical options, talk with your medical team, be in contact with them on a daily basis. So yes, there are lots of roles for people to play, and thinking about who can play what role is always the kind of nuance and stuff that is helpful in advance. Um, so I like to think about this whole conversation in terms of the village that we have often talked about in the Black diaspora, which is that when we think about care, we just don't think about it in terms of ourselves or the individual sitting in the seat next to us, or even that matter for people in our homes, but it is more about the village that we've created and the people who we've developed loving, caring relationships with. Certainly, I think in the diaspora, we value care. We almost expect that people will do what they can to be of help and of service and also receive care, so that that care is reciprocal. It doesn't mean everybody has to give the exact same thing. It does mean that that in general, we think about care as people being able to do according to their ability. Um, but that care and caring, being in a care relationship is often dignified. It's not about deficit. And in general, we've not put any like time limits on how long that care relationship can last. So those are some of the features that we've understood to be a part of care in the village of care. And some of those may resonate with you more than others. But one of the things we've talked about is how that has really stood across generations to be very helpful in the diaspora, because it is a relationship of care and it's normalized. So let me just stop and say a little bit about the care partners I have. In general, I've had the privilege of caring with and in deep relationship with a number of people. In 2017, November to be exact, um, both my mother, who lives 5 states away from me, and my father, who lives 6 states away from me, both became ill and in need of a lot of medical support and care support. That same month, my only sibling also had a medical event and then needed some support. And yes, she was in another state. At the same time, my husband and I were one of the primary supports for my mother-in-law and also one of his elder cousins. There are their pictures there, clockwise. My mom with the blue jacket on. Next is my mother-in-law with the gray shirt and the magenta sleeves. There's Jen, our cousin Jen, in the lower right-hand corner. And of course, that's my dad. What that meant, though, at that time was that they were all super seniors. That meant they were all over 80 in my book, super. And because they had very quickly a lot of medical issues, I found myself with 5 separate my charts on my phone going in almost daily to manage a lot of the care needs and the communications in the medical field for both my mother and my father, because I was primary for them. For my mother-in-law and for Jen, my husband was primary for them, those two. And so between the two of us, my husband and me, we had 8 my charts open and could run through those on an hourly basis. Um, so in addition to those 4 individuals and my husband, we had amassed an amazing group of professional care partners, some licensed and some not. And these were women who came to the profession of care partnership um, out of a calling, out of love, out of I don't know, maybe they were gifted. And while we got a chance to meet a lot of care partners in my mom's last year in her home, over 2 dozen, I think. Um, by the time we shifted to my mom's chosen place for an assisted living, we had a group of care partners that blew my mind in terms of their professionalism, their knowledge of what my mom was going through, their ability to communicate and advocate for her, and just to really care and love on her. Also in our village was my sister, who is an older sibling who had spent all of the decades between the time we graduated from high school and the time my mother got really ill as being the primary like child contact. So that's my sister was that sister who moved back home intermittently to hang out with my mom. My sister was that sister who called every day when she was, for example, working on another island, but she was very involved. And I think I mentioned that my sister had an incident, a medical incident, the same month that my mom did. So when my sister was able to step back and do a lot of her own primary care, that meant that I got a chance and the privilege to step up and be there on a daily for my mom. We had tons of family and friends, like friends, family members, and then friends who became like family members over the years. So we had a prayer warrior who was my bestie girlfriend from high school. And she literally, to this day, every quarter goes to bring um, fresh flowers to my mother's gravesite because she lives in the same state as my mom. We've had like family members. One was a uh, handled all my mother's prescriptions because she, in fact, worked at a pharmacy. She's a pharmacist. We had the chef who took care of my mom's favorite meals. And we had the nurse who came with all things and all questions about dosage and timing of my mom's medicine. So lots of different folks. And another part of our village became unexpected. I wound up getting a chance to do a fellowship with Caring Across Generations to study more and understand a little bit more about the care and the costs of care in this country and how we are trying to advocate on a policy level for changing some of those. And of course, there was the internet that became my good friend when it came time to sort of learn a little bit more about the questions to ask to actually be a knowledgeable care advocate for loved ones, super seniors that we were working with. In the middle of those 4 care partnerships, I was running my own business and I loved to travel. And what that meant practically was that the years leading up to that November 2017, I was probably on anywhere between 120 and 130 flights a year. So when I said I love to travel, I love to travel. And then um, as I became more invested and more available and more needed, hands-on both in my father's care and my mother's care, I wound up transitioning some of that travel over to their home places, right? To be able to be present and to take folks to appointments and stuff. And I think that worked really well, despite a lot of things that I was juggling. I felt like capable of making that happen, but then COVID hit in early 2020, which meant that I had some real specific choices to make about where I stayed and whether or not I moved about. We had 2 of the 4 that were in congregate care, or as you like assisted living. And so there were all kinds of rules around visiting them. And of course, there was a caution that we wanted to have to make sure we weren't bringing any of our super seniors any disease. And so if 2020 originally wasn't enough, I wound up being in a pretty bad collision later in 2020 that had some long-term implications for my ability to move about. Um, so that all took place in 2020. And then as 2021 came about, there were some other transitions and stuff that happened. So for my care journey, there was this intense period of being able to partner with folks. And for 3 of the individuals, their disease processes were not did not involve their cognition or their brains. But for one of them, it did. There was a significant and marked decline in their ability to care for themselves, and they were diagnosed with one of the dementias. Okay. So that's about me and how I've come to this care journey and some of the studying that I have been done. So we have 2 more poll questions to come up.
So I just have to say, Donna's being very modest. She went through a lot, and that she's sitting here. Okay, I'm trying to end this poll. That she's sitting here having this conversation with us today is phenomenal. And it's a testament, Donna, to who you are.
Well,
So
thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, and I'm trying to stall for time as I launch the second poll. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, you
So
all
there are
can see it.
So there are 2 questions. I know we have a good many of people who've engaged in care. So of the folks who have engaged in care, have you provided more than 40 hours a week of care to an adult or a group of adults um, in like for an extended period of time? And then the second question would be, have you discussed your desire for care with your previously designated person?
Are we using the third option if we haven't designated anybody?
Mm, yes, feel free.
Did you see my message to you?
Good now.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready for the results, Donna.
Yeah, sure. They should be in.
Yes? Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. So let's see. We have 83%, so that's good. So
Oh,
I'm going to
wow.
end the poll.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
Donna will see the results. You all can see the results.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
So of the folks we've talked about, people sounds like they've been engaged in some real and intense caregiving. Like oftentimes when people say they provided more than 40 hours a week of care for an adult loved one, that tends to mean that that loved one was close or maybe even in their home, right? Or they wound up relocating part of the week to be able to provide that level of care. It also tends to mean that those are not just convenient daytime hours when they can fit it into their schedule. 40 hours tends to be a lot. More than 40 hours, if you get to more than 50 hours, oftentimes people will say that level of care is also changing the way they sleep, changing the frequency with which they hang out with friends, changing the frequency with which they do their own personal care, like going to the doctor. Um, the second question about have you discussed your desire for care with your previously designated person? And again, we have about 1 in 5 who said yes, they have, and 50% who said nope, have not. Perfect. Okay. Thank you for that. Anybody care to talk about or share for the people who said they've not done over 40 hours? Anybody care to share a little bit about what that care schedule was like? Was it once a week you'd go over to somebody's house, or you'd stop in a couple of days?
Now, I want to make sure everybody can see your slides really well. I like when
Okay.
your pretty face is on the screen with your slides. So are you
Okay.
all seeing that clearly? Is it big enough for you all to see? Because somebody texted me and said it was small.
Uh,
Yes.
Yes,
so I
what?
put it
Yes.
that
Okay.
so I put it side by side, but it seemed really small on my screen, so I took my mug off the screen.
Beautiful face. So are you all able to read that or no? Somebody give me some feedback, please.
It's difficult for me to actually see it. I have to like really squint.
Is
And
that
how
better?
about now?
That's much better.
That's the same
Much
Okay.
for
better.
me.
Yay.
Okay.
Okay.
Much better.
Well,
Thank
Helen,
you.
we'll hang out tomorrow and you can see my mug up close and in person. There you go. Um, so let's see. Hmm. Okay. So part of what I want to talk about is a little of the emerging evidence about people who give 4 to 6 hours of care a day or anything under 10 to 15 hours a week. Anybody fall in that category? Um, Anybody have an experience like that they want to share?
You all can just unmute and talk if you're there, if you want to
Mhm.
share. Nobody?
Okay,
Okay.
no worries. So years ago, I had a family friend. He was much like my North Carolina father. It was like for some reason he and his wife just kind of adopted me, even though I was like 35 when they met me. And so as he got older, I would love to go over and sit with him, and we'd do everything from talk about what the sermon at his church was and any of his duties at the church, how they were going. We talk about things like his yard and what he was planting. He had a dog that we kind of hang out with, maybe play pitch and catch with. And that sort of happened on a weekly basis when I was able to make that happen. Um, Oftentimes it would not be um, close to 15 hours, it'd be more like 3 or 4 hours a week. But interestingly enough, the research shows that with that kind of with what's called kind of low intensity caring, so it's a partnership, you're working together, there's lots of mutual benefits, that both the person who is receiving a lot of the additional care and the person who's giving a lot of the additional care together in that relationship, when they've measured that, they've seen that the person who, the elder in this case, feels more independent, not less. They feel safer because they're having some specific assistance. And it really can be tailored to align to that person's goals. And so, in while that person is feeling more independent and safe, there's a lot of personal benefit and a lot of personal gratification with being able to provide that and being in a relationship with the person. Additionally, it's a great source of social connection. So sometimes I would drop him off at church or to play bridge or do all the different kinds of things, or just to hang out with somebody else, or to come over to our house and hang out here with folks that we're having over. So it turned out to be a path to his having increased social connection, less loneliness, and really sort of lowered both of our stresses because we kind of kept in touch. We knew what was happening. It felt easy and natural, and it really gave us purpose. I mean, he did things, and reciprocally, he made sure all my plants stayed alive when I was traveling all over, and he would make sure I was taking care of myself and ask me about things like that. So it really was reciprocal. And the research bears out the fact that when people do that level of care, oftentimes both people benefit, and there are very little downsides for that if it's within a relationship where it's a loving, kind of kind and nurturing relationship. Now, I know sometimes we are asked to provide care where the relationships are not like that. They're strained, they're hard, and there's a lot of history. And then sometimes we engage in support and care relationships with those folks as well. There's not enough research to talk about what happens to both of the people in that instance. But in this instance, overall, they talked about the benefits of the low intensity care. Okay. That same research, though, and this is sort of stuff that's emerging, really talked about the costs of high intensity caring. So they described high intensity caring as more than 50 hours a week or more than 14 hours a day, for which you are uncompensated for. So this is not your job. This is not you're a nurse or you're a CNA being paid to stay in someone's home and you then leave or whatever. This is really like inside of a relationship that you have, you're providing this kind of care and working with people and trying to support them for more than 50 hours a week. And what they found was that there can be a lot of erosion and weathering when people are trying to do all of that caregiving and as well also trying to take care of themselves and perhaps their children that the person is trying to support as well. So they may be part of this quote unquote sandwich generation, or it just may be that the kind of disease process that they're trying to be supportive in is something sort of new and foreign. So that there's documented ways in which if people aren't careful, this is not an always, but if people sort of dive headfirst into this level of high intensity care, you can see weathering and physical health declines and mental health problems, depression and stuff like that, and a lot of burnout. One of the things that's been fascinating for me is this whole notion of how this country does not support people who need a lot of support to stay in their homes. And so oftentimes people are having to go into their pockets or their loved ones' pockets to try to make care work inside their home. And so there's a lot of chronic stress. One of the things that they've been talking about lately is this notion of loss of identity. So as a care partner, a partner with somebody who you really want to help live their best lives, is this notion of loss of identity, where you get so involved in care, you are so engrossed in trying to make sure everything is right that you wind up losing time to do the things that gave you purpose and joy outside of that relationship. So oftentimes you'll hear people saying, like, I stopped going to church and I stopped singing in the choir and I stopped going to my crochet club and I stopped going to medical appointments or I put them off longer than I thought. And so there's a way in which the caring identity and doing all things well is easy to get wrapped up in. And I think that has been some of the mechanisms that lead to what they call this high cost of care for high intensity caregiving. So want to talk about why this whole notion that they're understanding is a little bit sensitive for me, but also real important for this group of when Black women gather. And part of it's because some of those really high costs are found with caring in partnership with people who have cognitive decline. And usually that's all of the neurocognitive things, but people talk about them in terms of Alzheimer's disease or any related dementias, because those categories put an additional demand on people who are in care partnership, because it's a lot of the care that you give feels sort of counterintuitive. Because a lot of what we do to care for people involves getting their feedback. And as the decline happens, you get less and less feedback from the person despite their best efforts. And so there is a higher risk for Blacks in general to get an Alzheimer's disease or a related dementia. Black women in some studies have been shown to have a 60% higher chance than Asian women, and Black men a 93% higher chance than Asian men in the United States for getting an Alzheimer's diagnosis or related dementia diagnosis. And then part of what we're also seeing is that even when Black folks are free of dementia at 65 years old, there still seems to be a really significant chance, or like a 1 in 3 chance, of getting a Alzheimer's disease or related dementia diagnosis by the time we're 90. So that's significantly higher than some other groups. One of the things that we do know is also that when we get dementia in the Black community, we tend to have a longer survival, particularly females. And so the average survival for after you get a diagnosis, it has been clocked anywhere between 2 and 7 years. One study has it at 3.7, but the fact of the matter is people can live quite a long time with the dementia diagnosis. But one of the things they're also finding is that there's this higher cognitive impairment load. So even though we get it more often, it seems as if the compromise that we have in our thinking ability seems to be a bit more than other race and ethnic groups. So this is my cousin, Trina, and she's a baby cousin. We had this wonderful relationship over the years. She's a cosmetologist, so occasionally she got my due completely right and surprised people because they were like, "Oh, you went to the hairdresser, looks fabulous." She's also a comedian. And so she is the joker in the family. And literally, I could spend, 4 hours just listening to her tell jokes and just, crack up. But one time, Trina, it was probably the late 2018, when I flew into town, she's like, "Hey, I want to take you to dinner." And I was like, "Oh, great." It was literally because she's my baby cousin, the first time she said she wanted to take me to dinner and pay. I was like, "Okay, what's going on?" So we get to dinner, we order, we have drinks, and in between the time that the drinks arrive and the appetizers arrive, she leans in and she says to me, "The well died before the sick." And I'm sitting here like, "What?" She's like, "I'm gonna say it again because you act like you don't understand me. The well died before the sick." And so what she was referring to was that she had seen me go from just sort of like happy-go-lucky, all these things and all these things going on, to really take into heart supporting these 4 super seniors. And she was worried. She was worried because in her mind's eye, she felt like I was burning the candle at both ends, and that wasn't going to end well. There are a number of people who are on the internet now who make it their business to share their parents or their loved ones' journeys through all the stages of cognitive decline. One is a person that I follow named Ty, and she, I think, is one of the most gifted individuals who works with her mother. She actually, by profession, has spent a lot of time working to support people to achieve behavioral milestones. So when her mother became compromised by the cognitive decline that she had, she took to the internet and has, I don't know, 120, 140,000 followers because she gives such practical advice. And the other day, she gave a post that basically said she was tired and that although she looks like and she performs at a super high level, it can be exhausting. So that got me to thinking about how to bring this whole notion forward about when there is cognitive decline, what do we know? And some of the latest research says that when we have a spouse or someone who's in our home and they get diagnosed with an Alzheimer's disease or related dementia, that if you're the wife and you're taking care of the husband or your partner, after that bout of care support, you are 4 times more likely to get the diagnosis yourself. And if you're the husband doing that for your partner in the home, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, you are then 12 times more likely to get a diagnosis in subsequent years. And it brought home to me what Trina said and what Ty said, which is it is hard work to do that with cognitive decline. And so I've often been on a journey to try to figure out, okay, so like what can I do to make this more endurable, to make this process better for both people, right? Because the roles that you play in working with someone who has a cognitive decline are just multifold. I mean, you get into, as they become more and more complicated and compromised, you get into a whole lot of different roles, right? Um, because you're there to be as supportive as you can. And sometimes if you're doing it as a singleton or as two people, it is, even if it's 5 people, it's a lot. So that comes the question of like, what do you do, right? I mentioned that my mom actually and my cousin Jen were in congregate care. So they were in assisted living facilities. And in both cases that was their stated express wishes. My mother purchased policies back in the early 80s to literally be able to go into her favorite assisted living. It was with the nuns in the LaFawn home. She told us she'll volunteered there, and that's exactly where she said she would like to be. Hurricane Katrina had some different ideas, so we had to pivot. But she, as well as our cousin Jen, felt like their best places to be were in assisted living. Um, in general, people make that decision, and they come to that decision because the care that their loved one needs exceeds what they can provide safely and respectfully without significantly compromising their own health, right? But there is a lot of lore in the Black community about how that's not good, how congregate care is less than optimal. I've had people in conversations when we've talked about it saying, that's like throwing your parents away, or I'm never going to do that. I would never be so cruel to my parents to put them someplace. Um, I think what people have been understanding and trying to grapple with is it is, in fact, an option, and you have to figure out if it's the right option for you and your family. For my mom, I wasn't quite sure why she was so adamant, but for the last 30 years of her life, she was very clear about where she wanted to be. And she did not want to be in either my sister or my home. Now, she was actually forced to come to my home and my sister's home because of Katrina. She had 5 feet of water in her home. And absolutely, we loved having her here. But after a while, my mother's like, I'm changing. I'm going to your sister. And that gets me closer to my house in New Orleans. And once I get back to Texas, I'm going to rebuild my house. And she did. It was amazing how she literally took features of me, my husband's home, and my sister's home and created a new home for herself. So she actually chose to do that. But it really was an opportunity for my mom in her facility to increase her socialization. She actually wound up reconnecting with a person who was in her elementary school that she remembered immediately, despite all the cognitive decline. And she had tons of opportunities on a daily basis for cognitively stimulating things. So at home, I had bought bingo cards and all kinds of cognitive things for her to play with the care, support, and people who would come over. But there was something different about her getting up to go to bingo with 30 other people and being able to yell bingo as if she'd won. It was very much like what she was used to when she would go to her church. Um, there was a lot of safety built into this particular home, but and it was an assisted living facility. But at the point where we honestly didn't feel like she was getting as much support as we would like, we bit the bullet and then provided round the clock 24-hour personal care providers inside of her apartment. So yes, she was in an assisted living facility, but she had her own care. And my mom, I think maybe I have another picture teed up for her, but she was great about saving and thinking about long-term options and her needs for healthcare. And she was absolutely well positioned to be able to afford that for herself. So that actually turned out to be a really good option for her. Um, I see somebody, Judy says, sometimes the facility that one knew 20 or 30 years, but may not have the same standard and processes. Exactly. Judy, that's exactly what happened. My mom, who had visited that facility, um, really trusted the processes and the nuns because it was a facility run by the nuns. And unfortunately, because it made national news, this particular facility ahead of Katrina was able to evacuate all the nuns, but did not evacuate the residents. And so 9 residents perished in Katrina because it was a single story facility, and these residents were not able to make it up to safety. And my mom felt absolutely betrayed by the facility because she could not understand why the nuns would have made the decision to evacuate the rest of the nuns and not evacuate the patients. So yes, ouch. So she was like, she declared a decree right here in my sunroom that what she would not be doing is going to this particular home. So on to different conversations. So what I'd like to do right now is to give us a chance to sort of, you've heard the story, you've heard some of the things. I'd like for us to spend some time thinking about a scenario where you sort of think about like who you want and don't want to be a part of your care partnership. Well, first of all, let me say this. A number of people have already done this planning. So it might be helpful if you take a look at a timeline. So some people have a plan in place now. So you may want to think, okay, what about in 10 years? How might my plan be different? Or how about today if I needed to enact a plan? Like who would I want to be a part of my care team? Are there people who I don't want to be a part of my care team? Not in a malicious way. It could be because you don't have a relationship, but it also could be because you understand now that they're compromised in the way or they have some other things on their plate, right? Where would you want to have that care happen? How long and when might you want them to step in? And which resources will they use? And it could be money, but it also could be resources like location. Where would you um, want them to stay? How would they help? Right? We're going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then what we're going to ask you to do is then take another couple of minutes to do the reverse, to flip the script and give an honest appraisal about, given this scenario, what do you think the impact will be on all the people who you're hoping to be a part of your care plan? Um, and then we'll come back. So we'll give you like 3 to 4 minutes. I'll start my clock. And maybe I'll put on some music and give people a chance to just sort of think about their plan and do a sort of honest appraisal of what the impact will be on the people that you name. But before I get started, are there any questions about the activity? Is it clear or in some way, do I still need to explain stuff?
So you're asking us to determine this for care for us, and then you said switch it around, and I couldn't get when you said switch it around. What do we do?
Perfect. So when you're thinking about care for us, that's the scenario. You think about your own care,
Hmm.
what you think you would need, and you can make this a scenario. So you can pick the timeline and you can also pick how much care you think you would need, but just map it out, right? Think about who you would want, where you would want it to happen, for how long, and which resources. And then after you do that, after you come up with a scenario and it's your choice, then anybody that you've named, I want you to then flip the script and be able to take their position and think about what the impact will be on them.
Oh,
And
okay.
we've gone through anything from um, some studies that say even light um, care partnership can be very beneficial, to some studies that are saying lots of hours without, just one person for a long time can be somewhat draining. So it gives, we went through that so you can give sort of your sense of like, I'm naming my next door neighbor. Like, what would that mean for her if I needed this kind of care? And what would that do to her life? What kind of things would we do together? Those kinds of things. So, yes, just take that position. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And then I see in the chat that Rochelle said that ironically she just visited someone in a nursing home, and I could not stay long because I was saddened by the level of care. I concluded that the bad ones are the ones that give assisted living a bad name. Oh, yeah. Right. And there are some good ones. It absolutely, absolutely varies. And in addition to the nursing homes and the assisted living, there's now a whole cottage industry around these family care homes where individuals have 3 or 4 bedrooms in their home, or have a second home where they have 3 or 4 bedrooms and they provide care in a more home-like setting. So there are more and more diverse options for how people age well. Um, but yes, you can go into some facilities and just be heartbroken, right? Um, yeah. So it's 5:05 and we'll come back maybe around 5:08. What's 5:06? 5:09. Okay.
Claudia, is your question for Donna right now, or you're just posing it?
Helen, I'm just posing some questions.
Okay. Sure, I can answer that now if you'd like. Um, so they range. There are some facilities who have Medicare slots. They're almost always on back order, and it's hard to get in, but some of those require very little out-of-pocket money. And then there's all the way on the other end, if you can imagine. So one of my good girlfriends who was a dean at a major university, and she and her spouse was also high up in university. They had what I would call an extremely ample cash flow income. And so they chose to put the mother in a facility that cost about 14 grand a month. And then they began to wrap around private care sitters in the daytime, which cost about $25 an hour for 12 to 14 hours a day. Yeah. So there are some facilities when we were looking in New Orleans, my mom happened to have an insurance policy that they don't write anymore. It was unlimited, which meant that if she went into a facility, she could stay there for 100 years if she lived 100 years, and her policy would continue to pay. There are more frequent now instances where insurance will only pay up to 3 years, and they might pay, was looking at a couple policies, anywhere between 130 and $150 a day, once you've been paying all these premiums. And so in the area where the person was looking, the average daily price was $211. So you could tell immediately there's a 70, 80, $60 difference a day. Yes, Helen, um, it seems to me absolutely criminal, right? I will say that $14,000 did seem absolutely criminal. What I found fascinating was we had, what's not in this list is another elder who became compromised cognitively, but she lived on an island in the Caribbean. And that island has a very different policy when it comes to needing support. And I about hit the floor when her daughter told me how much it was going to cost for her mom to get round the clock care. Because it was like $3,000. Like the country itself subsidized round the clock in home care. It did not have a lot of congregate care situations. So basically, it was on the state and the government to sort of vet and find these folks, and then you could pick from a pool, and it was fairly reasonable. Any sort of most of the insurances that a number of these folks had gotten in the States converted right over to this island, and they were to the good, right? They didn't have to worry about inflation or anything else. So there are just in the Triangle area here, there are a number of facilities that are in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. There are which island? This was Trinidad. Um, we also have regular facilities around here that are in the 6 to 8, and there are major differences in the ways in which those numbers matter. So um, some involve a much broader, much richer meal plan. Like, so the facility that my mom was in provided 2 or 3 custom meals every day for dinner. You got your choice, and then there was an all-day menu on top of that. And there was fresh vegetables, a variety of vegetables. You could get green beans and broccoli and cauliflower and eggplant and whatever. And you could get any number of kinds of fish. It just wasn't codfish or catfish or tilapia. Like you might get swordfish, you might get mahi, you might get. So the quality of the meals does change across time. My mother went straight from a hospital once into a facility that had an opening. And it turned out to be really, really close to the house I came home from in the hospital, and the house that my family had owned since the 50s. And I was like, yes, because my had cousins that lived across the street, and they were like, and this particular facility, unfortunately, was on the lower end. It had a lot of beds for individuals whose sole source of payment was Medicare, Medicaid. And as a result, my mom, despite her cognitive confusion, was like, what is this they are trying to feed me? Like the green beans were brown, the meat seemed like it was a mystery, and they constantly served her um, mashed potatoes, right? None of the things that my mom was used to. So it was helpful that she had the resources to be able to do that. I have some other elders in facilities around New Orleans and some, of course, here in the area. And I would just say that there's levels and tiers. There's some facilities that are more encapsulated, and so you have most of your activities in the places there. There's some that do things like have a swimming. My mother chose the facility that had the swimming pool. Okay, great. Because she thought she was real cute in a bikini, and she was right. So there are lots of ways that the facilities change. I'm going to go ahead and bring people back. If you need more time working on your honest appraisal, just come off mute and let me know. But we can get some people to share what this particular piece was like, getting their scenarios, like developing, just deciding on a scenario and then doing the honest appraisal for impact on others. Anybody care to share? Lena, did you just come off of mute?
Oh, I just wrote my comments got split, but what I was just sharing about a friend. He's been taking care of his wife with Alzheimer's for she's had at least 10 years or more, and she cannot hold a conversation. She cannot feed herself. She has to be moved with a hoist, something called a hoist. Yeah,
A hover
and
lift.
yeah, and so sometimes, I give him suggestions to people that he can hire because he's not going through a nursing facility or those home health care because it costs too much. But so when he starts complaining like that, I know it's frustrating. So he'll say, "But no." So I said, well, he drives, although he has some, impairment himself. He's a vet. And so I said, well, you can put her in a nearby nursing home, then you can drive and see her every day. And he said, oh, no, oh, no, no, no. She's going to die right here in this house, and I'm going to die right in here too. So, and he has trouble keeping people, keeping help. So I don't know. So, I just call and try to be supportive sometimes, but
Yeah.
that's yeah, I think that's a typical Black attitude, no, we're not going there. He's not going anywhere. She's going, we're going to die right here in this house.
Yeah.
So, that I don't know what to say. He doesn't leave the house. He said he never leaves the house.
Right.
When one of the helpers is there, he doesn't leave anyone in there. Well, he has two grown children, and sometimes they'll come around, but he's basically there,
Yeah.
24/7.
Yes.
So I wonder about him. I didn't know about the chances of getting what do you call it, ARDR, whatever it is
Yes,
yourself.
Alzheimer's disease or
Yeah,
related dementia. So a form of dementia. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, for all the reasons you just mentioned, my heart goes out to him because there's also this expectation that spouses will, you had a great 40, 50 years together, and the last thing you've ever talked about was someone shifting over to care facility. And there's almost no arguing with the spouse about them taking full 100% care of their loved one. And so this is exactly the reason why I wanted us to engage in this, because at this point, everybody's here, everybody has their faculties. If you want to do an honest appraisal of the impact on anybody who you name is going to give care, this would then be the time for you to be able to say to them, I understand you would like to care for me. And we have this agreement that we're going to get carried out this house, one together or separate. Like my father would always say to me, they're going to carry me out my house with a toe tag. And like he was serious. Like when he became more and more compromised, we had to talk him into going to the hospital because his concern was he was going to die in the hospital and he didn't want to. And so in fact, he did die in his bed in his home. But it was tricky, and it meant that for him, his situation was very different. He did not have any long-term care. He was self-insured, and so he paid to have people 24/7 at his home. And that involved a lot of extra support too. Um, so I do think it's I think that's why I titled it like a bold conversation to be able to say to ourselves, if I am one of the individuals who is at increased risk for a cognitive decline, a dementia of some sort, what do I want for my loved ones who are caring for me? And so, to be completely transparent, what my husband and I have talked about having gone through what I did with my mom, um, and my firsthand experiences with so many people. Full disclosure, I've had like 4 other girlfriends who either cared for a spouse or a parent with a dementia. And one kept working for 5 years afterwards so that they could afford the quality nighttime support in order for her to be able to get a break. It was this calculation. She kept working so she could be able to sleep at night and have caregivers because it's expensive. I had another girlfriend who brought her mom from across the country and um, would visit her mom, chose a care facility once her mom's care exceeded what she could provide in their home. And so she, for several years, got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, ran, got to the facility at 6:30 to be there when her mom opened her eyes, stayed for 2 hours, then went to work, came there for lunch, stayed for an hour and a half, went back to work, went literally back from work in the evening for a couple hours until her mom fell asleep, and then she went home and took care of herself. Lots of things perished in the process, including her financial cushion for being able to provide for herself. I knew a girlfriend who's took care of her mom at home, and because of the care involved, which was a lot for her, she described it as being grueling. She just also said she would not have changed a single thing. She put her mom in the ground, her mom's remained in the ground. And then 2 months later, she looked up with a cancer diagnosis and completely bald. She had not been to the doctor in 4 years and had been in tremendous stress. So I do think it's worth us thinking about if we have loved ones who are going to step up in that way, being able to say to them or consider saying to them, hey, I'm gonna need you to figure out how to get you 2 nights a week where you're not caring for me. And I don't care if you burn through my savings. I don't care if you burn through and get rid of whatever pictures I have on the wall to finance that. I just don't want you 24/7 doing that for me. Like, or if I'm at this point and it's doable, that's great. But when it comes to this point, I'm happy with your picking a different living situation. Or I'm thinking about how we can develop a small care facility by us having multiple bedrooms and having friends come in, and then we all chip in and pay for somebody so we can stay at one house and not and get the kind of quality care we want. I think those are the kinds of questions and ideas we get to kick around now because we have time. And if we decide to, great. If we don't, that's great. But I think the information is emerging about how difficult that is to do, mostly because medicine has allowed people to live longer with more compromise, right? Much more compromise. So you can give somebody with a dementia, you can make sure they don't have a UTI, or if they do have one, you can provide medicine for them in a way that keeps them going, sometimes at a diminished level, but it keeps them going for a while. But there's all kinds of signals and stuff that you can use to support them. They're medicines that stave off the decline, so it makes the decline slower. So people are facing longer and longer periods where people have cognitive issues. And like you're saying, Lena, there's a lot of work to be done out of love, clearly, clearly. But that means a lot of work for an individual. Other folks, other responses? What was it like to do your scenario? And were you able to think a little bit about what that means for the other people in your plan?
I just had where Helen knows, probably everybody knows, I tore my Achilles tendon last August, and I was in the bed. I'm doing much better. It's healed without surgery, but it gave me some time to think about it. So by attending today, I'm kind of adulting. This sounds really terrible, but when it comes to Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
I I would rather like the Hemlock Society or something like that. I don't want my loved one to suffer with seeing me go through that. I saw my father-in-law go through that, and a very, very close friend. Both of them were brilliant, caring people that did all this major stuff for other people. And to see them go into that really degenerative state was quite disturbing. So that's where I am. My husband has said that once he is no longer, you know, cognizant or in the stage of Alzheimer's, he doesn't care if I put him in a nursing home. He just doesn't care. So, yeah, we watched his uncle, in addition to his father, have dementia for about 8 or 9 years. His wife never left his side. I mean, it was so rare that she left his side. She had been a nurse. He died. She started to fall just like an older person. The daughter came from California, picked her up. She thought she was going to live with her daughter. Her daughter put her in a nursing home. She died 18 months later. So that was just horrific. So, yeah, those are my feelings on it. I know it's a little controversial as far as just not wanting to let Alzheimer's play out for myself. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are all choices people are making, right? And they've given them some thought. The two choices that you talked about when to shift to a congregate care facility or when you would choose to not have aggressive medical stuff or, for example, the hemlock stuff. Those are all choices people are making. And to be honest, most people are beginning to think about those pieces after they've been through it. Because on a lot of levels, it's hard to understand. I think I've known people who've had cancers that played out over time and that were incurable after being cured for a long time. I've known people who've had other types of organs to fail over time. And I think the particular one around cognitive decline is hard for people because we just use logic, we use reason, and everything we've done in our conversations has like made sense. And then the world goes topsy-turvy for someone who has significant compromise cognitively. So, but thank you so much for sharing that. It doesn't sound horrible to me at all. It sounds like you've been thinking about it. And I think a lot of times people have choices. I was surprised one day when I was at a party and I shared with somebody that had just gotten back from New Orleans. I arrived at, I don't know, 9 o'clock that morning, jumped in and went to one of my social meetings that met from like 10 to 12:30. And then we had a party that afternoon. And so they were like, where have you been? What have you been up? I haven't seen you. And I shared that I had been involved in some care partnership with my mom. And the person said to me, she's like, so you were at the hospital? I was like, yeah, we were at the hospital because she had a UTI and we needed to get it treated. And she said to me, matter of factly, my husband has Alzheimer's, which I knew. And when he reached a certain stage, he left instructions. He's like, do not give me any medicines except medicines to keep me calm and keep me pleasant. Because he felt like it was prolonging a compromise that he was at that point. He's picked a point where he basically was not sure where he was. He did not know anybody, blah, 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 blah. So once he reached the stage of compromise, right, he like literally said to his wife, promise me you will not let the doctors give me penicillin or antibiotics or whatever all these things are to make it to prolong my life. I'm good. I've had an amazing life. I have the memories I have, they're slipping away, and I want you to be able to rest easy in knowing that that's my choice.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. Other folks? Other folks?
Anybody else who wants to share did you give any, Charlotte's given thought, obviously, to what she wants for her
Mhm.
loved ones and caretakers. Anybody else wanting to share? Like, have you thought about what you exactly want and what impact you think it will have on your providers?
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't know if my hand is up.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Great.
Go
I don't
ahead. I
know.
see Dr.
Oh,
Willa and I see
yes, I wanted to say something too.
me too.
go ahead.
I'll go after you,
Hi,
Dr. Willa.
Dr. Willa. We can hear you, Dr. Willa. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was waiting for the other person whose hand
All
was.
right. And she deferred to you, I think. That's what just.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I'm very pleased to be part of this conversation because I've been dealing with long-term care insurance for the last 3 months. Any of you who use the insurance company that I have know that it's very expensive and you pay it a long time and you don't get any benefit from your expenditure except the satisfaction of knowing that you're trying to take care of yourself and your future if you do become ill.
Mhm.
But my company has made a large increase and they're locking people in for at least 5 years. You have to pay at this rate that's even higher than what you're already paying. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
have been dealing with this question from many aspects. I have been to my doctor, I've been to lawyers, I have been to everybody I thought might have um, some reflection or some could shed some light and help me. And I have yet to make a final decision. But one of the things that has become apparent to me is that the idea of having a medically assisted death once one reaches the point when you are no longer independent or able to think for yourself and you're just a burden on other people who have to take care of you, that seems to be a rather intelligent choice. But I think it goes against our upbringing and our culture and our religion and lots of things.
Mhm.
But maybe it's something that we're going to have to become more comfortable thinking about.
Mhm.
I have a friend who said to me, she's been trying to help me. And when we talked about what choice she's making, she said, "Well, I'm not worried about someone taking care of me because when I get to the point where I can't take care of myself and there's no hope, then I just want to have to go on to have my life come to an end."
Mhm.
So it kind of shocked me, but when you think about it, it it does make a lot of sense that when one person is dying, why should two? you know, if
Yeah.
why should the caretaker have to sacrifice her or his life to keep the other one alive who's not going to make it anyway? So I'll just put that out there to build on what I don't remember the name of the person, but the person
Charlotte.
who spoke ahead of me,
Mhm.
which
And I just have to jump in and share with you all that Dr. Willa is almost 100 years old,
Yes.
and I think her input means a lot here. So thank you for being so open and
Yeah.
unselfish
That's
and
right.
yeah.
unselfish in
Mhm.
what you and Donna, I'm sorry, go ahead, take it from there.
No,
Well,
no,
I
no.
think
It's
we have to be grateful. Anybody who's been alive 97 years and it hasn't been all bad, I've had good and bad,
Mhm.
but you know, I think I should be somewhat satisfied. I'm not asking for any early,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when my life does come to an end, that I need to be able to accept it with a lot of gratitude
Mm-hmm.
that, I've been so fortunate to have lived so long
Mm-hmm.
and to have known so many people and to have had,
Mm-hmm.
a good life.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end, why should I wear somebody else's health and their life chances, diminish those to keep
Mm-hmm.
me alive when I'm dying anyway?
So you have said a mouthful,
I
right?
know.
Or lots of wisdom in that. And what I would say is you have, I hear your honest appraisal about what you value. You've also lifted up that a lot of times this decision is um, like involves people's religion, what
Yeah.
they believe about faith, whether or not they believe there's an afterlife, whether they believe there is an afterlife for people who make that decision. So there's a lot involved in it. And I think for us and our next step is if there are people that are going to in some way you want them to weigh in, if you've named them in this scenario, or if you think they might have a say about it, it's also important to think about how and when you communicate that. So I do have a girlfriend who um, took care of her husband for a long time. And then um, he passed away, and then she retired, and she was very like like she traveled and she did the things. She certainly missed him tremendously, but he had been sick for a while. It wasn't a dementia. Um, and she took it upon herself to communicate with their kids. And what she said to the kids, she had a basic open conversation like, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you all watched because the kids are spread all across the country, and she spent the majority of the time providing care. And so she said, you all watched me. I don't want that kind of burden for one person. I don't even want it for two people. If you're able to amass three or four people and the burden feels light, then yes, help me out. I'm happy for it. I have a little nest egg that can help you. But her limits were, I don't want you all to blow through your 401k and your money to nest egg to take care of yourself after I'm gone, to take care of me. And initially, her children was like, oh my God, don't have this conversation. We don't even want to think about it. And she brought it back up again after Christmas dinner. She's like, this is my gift to you to be able to talk with me about it and know my heart, know what I want for you all. And then I want you all to be honest with me about what you're thinking. So I think there were like 6 kids involved. And there were 2 kids, interestingly, the oldest son and the middle daughter, who was like, okay, when that happens, we are 50 miles apart. This is what we're going to do. We're going to try to do this with our spouses and our kids to work this out until such time it becomes too much. And then if it becomes too much for us, then we're going to move you to a facility like you asked. She was completely surprised. She's like, really? She's like, okay, but I know if circumstances change, it might change. But she, in the communication with them, learned some things that surprised her.
Mhm, mhm,
So, yes. I mean, I don't expect that kind of surprise for my husband and me because, like I said, not only do we not have kids, we have no biological nieces or nephews.
mhm,
And so, although we have wonderful kids in our lives and we participate in their graduations, their schooling, and all these other kinds of things, they have parents of their own. So I would not, I've communicated with them what I expect to happen, what I think would happen. They're
mhm,
so young. They're like, oh, no, we'll be there for you. I was like, gonna
mhm.
need to live a little longer and see what that actually
Right.
means. Yeah, and so we're in conversation. It's gonna, evolve over time. But I really appreciate your honesty and how you've been thinking about it. So thank you.
Mhm.
Other folks?
I think Miss
Yes, I'd
Jones,
like
were
to
you?
say that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, who was that? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Moon. I'm not on video right now, but I took care of my parents, as I said at the top of the hour,
Mhm.
and it definitely is a lot of reordering of your life. I won't say sacrifice because they deserve the care,
Mhm.
and I did it in their home. They didn't want to go to a nursing home, and I didn't want them to.
Mhm.
Um, and my other siblings were, they felt like nursing home would be would be the best, and so I had to bar them from coming. Yeah, yeah, because that was a negative mindset, and I didn't want that negativity to be a part of what was going on in the house.
Mhm.
And but in any event, I did prevail on that, and so that we didn't have that kind of discussion because I was willing to take care of it. And I
Mhm.
mean, this might sound selfish. I wanted, and I'm evolving, but I
Mhm.
wanted my own loved ones. I didn't have children, but I took care of my nieces and nephews through college,
Mhm.
through all of their ups and downs, whether it's
Mhm.
financial or emotional support.
Mhm.
And I did have a brief conversation. I said, um, I didn't want to move with them. I wanted them to think about moving with them. But then that becomes sort of impossible. They have their own families. The
Mhm.
only thing that I have done is to talk to um, one of my adopted nieces, who is a medical professional, about uh, my directive. My what to do with the various stages of my health, and
Mhm.
she would get the final say along with a good friend of mine. I have named them. That's it. But I don't want to be in a nursing home at the time that I'm talking to you now. I really don't.
Mhm.
I don't know how I can navigate the alter. Right now, I'm fine. I can. I'm okay, but I'm looking at the reality of my age and my own health issues.
Mhm.
And so, while some people say that it's a burden for the young people and their families, I'm not thinking that that's so bad. And that might sound horrible, but I don't think so. I mean, it's not like a quid pro quo, but it is something like that. My parents took care of me when I was young and coming through, and so I needed to make sure that they were cared for emotionally and physically. And so I moved to where they lived. I had to give up my practice, but I created something altogether different.
Mhm.
And so I was happy with that choice. Everybody can't make it, but and I understand that, but I just think that we need to think just a little bit about some egalitarian approaches to this. Their lives cannot be perfect, and you can't, perhaps we can't intrude on them, but I don't know why not. To a certain extent, that might sound. I mean, I just really truly feel that way. Now, tomorrow afternoon at 5:30, I might feel altogether different. You know, but
I
I
hear.
want them to look after me. I want them to take me to the tennis court. I might not be able to hit that well, but they know I like to do that. You
Uh-huh.
know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so I just think that we shouldn't be harsh on ourselves either as we live longer,
Mhm.
and we want to protect. Why? It's time for us to be protected a little bit. And so I don't know how that all shakes out, but that is how I honestly feel.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
so I'm thinking of people who now do, sort of give me a lot of comfort
Mhm.
and and support, because I've always been that person in the community. So that makes it a little bit easier.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's not all profound, but I just wanted to share that. There's some people don't want you to know that they need you, but I do. I need them
Mhm.
while
Mhm.
I'm, able. Come
Yes.
now.
Mhm. And I think that's a great point, right? So when people are thinking about this reciprocity, and it is give and take, it is back and forth according to your ability, right? That's been a
Hmm.
long held belief in the diaspora about what the village is supposed to provide. And I do think for people who have folks like that, who are willing, who, if they voice their expectation, or even if they don't, people will step up. I think that's absolutely great if that fits with your plan. Um, I do know people, I've got girlfriends whose kids I think will fight over where she stays, right? If she ever needs to stay with them in their home. Um, Absolutely. I was with her this past weekend at her mother's homegoing celebration, and yeah, all three of those kids. That's their expectation. That's their they are looking forward to it. They actually want her to come live with them way before she needs any support. That's just her family, right? And I think for people who can make that decision, for people who are built that way, it's really important to be able to honor that, right? And also, not everybody's built that way, and not everybody has the folks
Much.
around them to support them. I mean, I actually know this one friend, she is in her 90s. All three of her kids have moved back home with her following the passing of her spouse. And it's harsh to say, but not one of them provides good care for her in her own home, right? So they
Yes.
leave her hungry. They bring in
Ah,
fast food, and they may offer to pick her up some like McDonald's. I'm like, your mama, 90 years, like what? But so I think it's not only
varies.
having the number, but the quality and the person's heart who's wanting to do that. And I guess what the data says is even when their heart is always in the right place, there are human limits associated with and a human toll if somebody's doing that 195 hours a week for 5 years. So,
Wow. There are three, before Miss Jones, I think you were trying to speak before Dr. Willa, is that right or no? Because I have
Uh,
Miss Dr. Jones, I have Felicia, Richard, and Mike Smith.
okay.
Miss Jones, did you
yeah,
want to speak?
I was say a couple of things, and when I I, I I know what's down here, and I don't know what's after after death. I don't know if there's really an afterlife. So I want to hang in here as long as I can.
Okay.
So and when I hear people say, relatives will say, if I don't know anybody and da da da, just let me go. So if I have a UTI and I'm in a nursing home, treat my UTI, because if I'm comfortable, if I can eat, if I'm, I don't know you when you come, but I'm not having any pain and discomfort, that's no reason to just let me go and have a UTI become a septic shock or something like that. So treat me,
Okay.
so
Mhm.
because I do want to. I don't want to be here if you have to turn me 2 hours and there's no meaningful recovery and any meaningful life. I remember one of my relatives um, had chronic renal failure and he was on dialysis, and he just didn't want it anymore, and it was hard for me because he was my best bud, and who am I going to talk politics with and laugh with and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and I said, well, you know what that means if you don't get dialysis. And he goes, yeah, I know, but I just can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
And so he stopped the dialysis, and he lived for almost 2 weeks, and
Mhm.
then he passed on. I said, well, I said, well, it's my Uncle Charlie. I said, Charlie, if you can come back and let me know that you're here, you know, come back and let me know. And I said, but don't scare me now. And so said, yeah, I'll. He said, okay. He says, I love you. I would scare you, you know. So, but anyway, so far I haven't had any signs for him. Or sometimes a gnat will come by, buzzing by my head, or a fly, and I'll swat at him. I said, Charlie, is that you? You know, so
Yes,
you know,
yes.
so it's when you know, as I get older and I get, you know, started having my own health issues, you know, my views are changing, and I know that, like, my stepdad, he had emphysema and he had to be intubated once, and he said, he told me, I don't want that. If they have to do that again, I don't want it. I said, Papa, boy, if you need it, you know, get it. You know what that means? And he goes, yeah, but I don't want it anymore. And then when he went into a crisis, and my younger sister want everything done full court press, and the doctor talked to me over the phone, and I said, well, I talked to him about that. He said the doctor told me he had multi-system failure, and for me, I knew that, you know, when one your you know, your kidneys failing, then it's going to back up in your lungs and your heart. Well, you're not going to make it. And someone they wanted to intubate him. I said he didn't want it, so they let him go. And, you know, and I think it's probably would have been best, because he probably would have died on a respirator, you know. So, so, you know, making those decisions are hard. But I know that sometimes when, like, say, my Uncle Charlie, when he decided to let go, it gave me a chance to say goodbye to him, you know, and for me to accept it, that he was leaving. And he, you know, I don't know if at the last minute maybe he decided, hey, I don't want to do this, but it, you know, he didn't. So, but those things are important.
Yes, they are. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ms. Jones. Felicia, I'm trying to rush this along so we can give Donna back her evening. Felicia, Miss Richards, are you still
Yes,
here?
I'm here.
Go ahead.
I was just having this conversation with a friend, and I don't know why my spirit told me don't leave the house today. And about 1:25, I thought about this group, and I said, oh, I haven't connected in with them in a while, and I'm so happy I did. I have been fortunate to be planning and to be around these 68 years in order to see some things that I had to think about throughout my lifetime. And at an early age, I learned about long-term care and was able to get it when they start allowing us to do so at age 40. I, since in the last 5 years since I've retired, have been thinking, where am I going to go? Who's going to assist me? I have my mother is still alive. My father has passed away, in which I had very little relationship with him after 1973. Mom is up in age, and when and we've been in a quiet, nonverbal disagreement about me continuing to be there to assist her as she gets older, when she had at the time 2 other kids. So she too has long-term care, but she has chosen to use hers in a different way. Whereas I keep telling people, Waymo and turning in my keys when DMV says turn them in, Waymo is going to be my way of getting around. In addition to going out and seeking a place that I don't want no one to just send me to without me having some say. So I've been searching for the last 3 years. Where am I going to go when I simply have to leave my home? I'm currently I've been in, well, I fell December 21st, 2024, and I chipped 2 teeth. I had raccoon eyes, hands looked like animals' feet. And that was a wake up call for me. In addition to, since my birthday in November, I have been to 19 funerals, some old, some many my age and my classmates. And that reality has struck home. I happen to have a policy that is one of those policies that they regret they wrote at the time that they wrote it. And my financial planner 20 some years ago said, do not get caught slipping.
Right.
And mispaying that policy. Although they told me when I bought it that it would stay at that cost for the rest of my life, they have gone up on me 4 times. And the California Insurance Commissioner, I call and complain and about the fact that they have allowed these people to continue to go up because of the cost of living and this, that, and the other. I don't care, but they're going to pay dearly if I ever have to use that policy.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for that. I just want to inject right quickly that one of the things we're fighting on a policy level is that as Black people who disproportionately get impacted by cognitive issues, oftentimes what begins to slip before anybody of our loved ones catches it is our bills. And if you have an insurance policy that requires payment, either on an annual basis or a yearly basis or annual basis or monthly basis, do your best to get that automated with a backstop. Because if you get to the position, and I've known people who've had this happen where their bills start to slip and that one insurance bill slips, right? And they're 2 months before a daughter or a spouse catches it, and that insurance policy that they paid on for 30 years is no longer active.
Can I add something to?
Sure. Doc, go right ahead.
Yes. I mentioned in my earlier statement that I had talked to a lawyer. And when I saw the lawyer about the possibility of giving up my long-term care insurance, he said, you said to me in our telephone conversation that you wanted to leave your house to your daughter. And I said, that's my phone. It's not bothering you that much. Should I stop and get it so I can stop it ringing?
Okay.
She got up pretty good.
You're fine, Dr. Although we can't even hear it. So go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Oh, she went away.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Helen, you have the list of people who are here, next up to speak. Is that right?
Mike Smith is the only one with his hand up. And
Okay.
we've gotten everybody else.
I
Mike,
just
did you want to
say
go
one thing.
while
I just want to finish by saying one thing. Oh, go ahead. She's back.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No.
He said, you said you wanted to leave your home to your daughter. And I said, yes, that's my wish. He said, well, be very careful. You better keep up your insurance because if you don't have it, if you give it up and there are medical expenses that cannot be covered, they will take your house.
Yes.
He said, they were just waiting for that. So we have to be careful about these obligations and the medical insurance the medical expenses that we don't know, what's ahead of us.
Yes. The government now is capable of, if it pays a lot for your end of life or near end of life care, and then you transition, yes, there are mechanisms for the government to come knocking on your heirs' doors and say, we will take our money back. Exactly. That has changed. Or at least my understanding is that it didn't used to be that way a long time ago, but people can count on that happening now. And then Mike, you're up next.
Let me jump in.
For the
Let
sake
me
of,
jump
for
in.
the sake of
Oh,
Wait a
time,
minute.
I'll yield to Miss.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Okay. First, I want to pay homage to Dr. Cofield. I'm so inspired with her spirit and her alertness and engagement. Thank you, Dr. Cofield.
Thank you.
Quickly, my mother had Alzheimer's for 20 years, and my siblings and I took care of her. And being a man, having to take care of a woman, your mother, was a unique position. It was humbling. I remember smelling the odor, and I told my sister, called my sister at work and said, look, she needs to be changed. And she aptly said, handle it.
Yep.
And I did. And I did. I just want to say that we can mitigate a lot of these issues about our future if we take better care of ourselves, if we take better care of ourselves. Just like in a flight attendant's announcement, if there's a problem, you put your mask on first. I can't get over the number of obese, unhealthy looking Black folks in the world or in this country. And you're putting a burden not only on yourselves, but on your family. So COVID proved that. COVID took out unhealthy Black folks first. And I think we can mitigate a lot of problems ourselves if we take better care of ourselves. Thank you, Ms. Higgins.
Excellent points, but I have to circle back to what Dr. Willis and or maybe Donna was saying. From the legal perspective, you really want to move as much of your property out of your name as possible while you're still in good health, because each state has a different, I don't know what you call it, set of years, right? So most states, if you, like, let's say today I moved everything out of my name and put it in somebody else's name. Um, there's still a 3 to 5 year period where the state says, well, if I get sick before that 3 to 5 year period and I have to need long-term care that I don't have enough funds for, they can still come after everything. So it's kind of ridiculous that they expect that when you're going to have these crises. But from a legal, and each state is different. So talk to, an elder attorney in your state and find out how how much of a window do you have that you should not have anything in your name. And then that's another question. Who do you trust? Because I went to dinner with three couples. They all had children except me, and not one of them felt comfortable. They said their kids would put them in a home. They were not comfortable changing their property over. So just keep that in mind. Sorry, Donna.
No, the look back window is important, right? And it does, like you said, it varies. And so it's a little bit more complicated, like you said, than just handing it over to a loved one who you trust and who will carry out your wishes. It's also about the fact that there used to never, at one point, there wasn't a look back window. And so you could basically change it over this month, and then 3 months from now, when they came to assess how much net worth you had, they just looked at what you had in the moment. So yeah, there are a number of people that you can get on your team and in your village to help you sort of sort some of these things out. And like Mike said, my hat's off to Dr. Cofield, because sounds like you have engaged so many people in trying to figure out some very thorny issues. I mean, I would just like to say that it doesn't need to be this complicated, doesn't need to be this hard, and it doesn't need to be so confusing. Like this, there are countries who figured this out in terms of public policy to be more supportive.
Yes.
And I think as we understand what's happening to the population in this country as a whole, it's aging. I'm hopeful that people will be able to lift their voices and advocate for much more humane and much more supportive and much more proactive policies. I mean, Mike, your point about health and sleep and activity and nutrition and vitamin D deficiency, like all the things that we know put you at higher risk, even before you begin to do any care sharing is important, but we've got policies that makes all of those quite difficult for people. So thank you. My last thoughts for people is as you go through this process, my goal is to really help you all think about the best partnerships in Village that you have available to have the highest quality of living that you can, right? And then in the process of thinking this through, you're gentle with yourself. You're intentional about coming up with a particular plan and that you know that this plan can shift over time. So
Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you. My hat's off
Right.
to you.
Yeah.
It's been
You want to finish, stop sharing your PowerPoint? We can see
Yes.
who's left and just go ahead and say that was so I knew it would be though, informative.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring us on screen here. Let's see what I'm doing wrong. But yeah, that was super informative. And you can tell by the response that, people are dealing with these issues and we don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And I just look at it as one of those conversations that we tend to avoid that we just can't,
That's
So thank you for bringing that to the forefront and making it, putting it in the forefront of everybody's mind.
yeah.
Um,
Things we don't
Donna,
talk about that we need to talk about.
so Dr. Will, I have to ask you, your daughter is well aware of your plans. You've had an open conversation with her?
I have not taken care of that as well as I should. But I have tried to intimate it in little bits, but I think I need to call it what it is and say what has to be said. And I think I've gotten some energy from this program, from this
You can just share this
conversation.
video with her and then say, hey, let's talk.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, like I said, it's a partnership, right? She may have lots of feelings about it, and that's fine because you have lots of feelings about it, right? And so it sounds like you can rest on your relationship and figure out a solution that works.
yes. Well, I'm going to do my best.
Mhm. Gotcha.
So
Thank
Donna,
you so much.
you have any closing words for us?
No, I think it's been said. I
Yes.
just wrote in the comment box that I could resonate with what Mike said because when it came to my father's care, he needed some assistance with changing and bathing. He was like, mm, not never will my daughters, right? Like, like none of it was happening, and I was like, dude, like I'm like all in your business when it comes to he had 2 stage 4 cancers. I knew every detail, talked to people around the country, like all the things, took him to other cancer treatment centers, but it was not going to happen.
A hard
So
one.
I had to
I
respect that.
dated a guy who was taking, when I met him, his mother had brain cancer. I met him on Valentine's Day. His mother had brain cancer. She passed away by Memorial Day. But I was there and he would give her. So her mind was still working and he had to bathe her. And, she'd laugh and he'd play with her. But I knew that was like, wow, that was very impressive that he was able to do that. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, we all never know when our time is coming and how we are going to, what's going to be asked of us. So I'm going to remove Donna and I from Spotlight and ask everybody if you could please come off mute, give Donna some love, and we'll
Thank
call it
you,
a day.
Donna. This was great.
It really was. It was a lot of good information.
Thank you all.
Um,
Thank you, Donna-Marie.
I
Yes,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
So much.
You are more than welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank
somebody
you.
asked in the chats if you have a workbook. Or have you thought of doing something like that, Donna?
I don't. I have thought about it and I don't. But Helen can be my accountability partner or anybody else. So, because one thing I know about Helen is she writes prolifically. Like she can spit out an entire very thoughtful piece in like what seems to be 20 minutes.
What?
So, so
That's
yes,
what everybody says.
yes. So if you have ideas, then certainly shoot Helen or me a thing and yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
put your contact information in chat?
Sure.
What I didn't mention to you, I just jumped right into talking with Donna, but Donna's a psychologist, and I'm sure you picked that up by now. And a lot of her experience that she shared with us today was personal, but she's also obviously well versed in all of this professionally as well. And
Well,
that's
that
why we
was
got.
clear.
I was going to say she makes a very difficult conversation very relaxing and reassuring and kind of brings your heart rate down when thinking about, your own incapabilities or demise or whatever. She just had that sound, that rhythm that was very kept you
Soothing.
very engaged and comfortable.
Right.
But
All right,
it's
but we're
still
gonna let
sad.
her go. We're gonna let her go see her
Beautiful.
husband right now. So if we could just come off mute and do our farewell, and we can stay online. Donna's gonna go, but we can hang out for a few more minutes and just talk. So can everybody unmute and we can do what we do for those. All right. So when Black women gather,
Amazing
Amazing
things
Amazing things
happen.
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 Yes.
Welcome
and
to
thank
your amazing.
thank you
Yes,
all
yes.
for another
Another
amazing
amazing.
Sunday. And on that note, we'll stop recording. Thank you, Donna. Come
Thank you
again
so much.
anytime.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
Donna-Marie.
I really appreciate it. It's humbling to have this conversation with such amazing people. So thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Take good care.
And thank
Bye
you.
bye, Donna. Talk to you
Bye-bye.
Bye,
soon.
Doc. Bye, Doc. It was great meeting
Bye.
you.
Bye.